Mesopotamian views on sexuality were notably more liberal compared to many contemporary perspectives. Greetings everyone, today we're diving deep into the ancient world of Mesopotamia to explore its unique approach to sexuality, discover its rich ties to mythology, and understand how these aspects mirror the socio-cultural norms of that era. From the Epic of Gilgamesh to the controversial practices surrounding marriage, let's journey through the ages. If you find this video interesting, please support us by hitting the like button. Now, let's get started. Mesopotamian civilization is one of the four great human civilizations. A civilization that laid the foundations for various aspects of human society, including culture, trade, warfare, and literature. It has left behind many mysteries, including the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and the Tower of Babel. Sexual culture evolves in step with civilization. It elevates basic instincts beyond mere survival, reflecting the societal norms' complex patterns and progress. For example, food, clothing, and shelter, the basic elements of daily life, have diversified with the development of civilization. From a minimum standard of living, to a variety of choices that have come to symbolize class, wealth, and power. Today, we enjoy the freedom to choose our food and attire. The evolution of civilization and the economy shaped a lifestyle that mirrored the era's unique conditions and cultural milieu. In the Middle Ages, under the influence of Christianity, beauty standards were vastly different from those of ancient civilizations like Mesopotamia. Sexual culture is a very important and personally interesting area for understanding the life and thought of the times. Mesopotamian notions of sexuality were much more open-minded compared to many other ancient civilizations. The ancient Mesopotamian heroic epic, the Epic of Gilgamesh, features a prostitute, highlighting that attitudes towards prostitution have varied throughout history and across cultures, sometimes as a means of rising to the highest status as a woman. Also, as in modern society, labor was an important factor directly related to the prosperity and growing power of the state. According to Herodotus, an ancient Greek historian, who wrote about the Babylonian marriage system, women had to prostitute themselves at least once near the temple of Ishtar, the goddess of love. If chosen by a man, it was customary for them to spend the night together. This practice originated from fertility worship, closely associated with the tales of Ishtar, the goddess of love and fertility. Some say that Herodotus exaggerated the story, but in any case, the culture was very open sexually. Thus, Mesopotamian life was deeply related to mythology. The Mesopotamians' conception of sexuality is confirmed by their literature, works of art, and mythology. In Mesopotamian cities, the agricultural revolution around 10,000 BC produced a surplus of products. The population grew, and a civilization was formed. Around 4000 BC, bronze appeared and Mesopotamia became an economic and religious center. Cities were crowded with people, and each city had a temple dedicated to a patron god. For people from Mesopotamia, belief in gods was different from today's religions and was more closely connected to daily life. The growth of Mesopotamian civilization was closely tied to the evolution of its mythology, significantly influencing its literature on sexuality. The explicit content in Mesopotamian mythology, present in both their deities and literature, might startle contemporary audiences. Much like the familiar tales from Greek and Roman mythology, Mesopotamian stories featured gods with distinctly human traits. One of the characteristics of mythology is that the gods who appear in it are almost as human as we are, in that they are jealous, unfaithful, adulterous, and so on. While we'll avoid explicit details, it's notable that Ishtar, the goddess of love, introduced early in the narrative, engaged in what would be considered adulterous acts by today's standards. For the Mesopotamians, mythology wasn't just tales of gods. It was akin to studying history or religion in contemporary times. For them, mythology was religion itself, a study to understand the birth of the world. It also included education about male-female love and sexuality, and detailed instructions on how to satisfy a woman in the sexual act. Mesopotamian mythology is replete with goddesses, and an emphasis on female pleasure. The goddesses, known for their assertive personas, would occasionally mete out punishments to men who failed in satisfying them. The Epic of Gilgamesh also tells us that Ishtar, who fell in love at first sight with Gilgamesh upon his return from war, was compelled to satisfy herself and become the mother of Gilgamesh's child. She offered immense wealth and power in return for his agreement to marry her. However, Gilgamesh resists this proposal, rejecting Ishtar and questioning what he could possibly offer. A god who lacks nothing. Gilgamesh did not want to be one of the many men who were tossed aside and discarded by Ishtar. Unable to bear the humiliation of being rejected, Ishtar asked her father, the god Anu, to destroy Gilgamesh, including the castle, with the heavenly bowl. Gilgamesh, together with Enkidu, defeated the sacred bull Gugulana and captured the city. But Enkidu died as a result of divine punishment. Mesopotamian practices and norms around sex and marriage varied, appearing open-minded or conservative, depending on one's perspective. In those days, in most cases, marriage was a kind of contract between a man and the father of the woman he wanted to marry, established by money. Fathers often arranged marriages for their daughters with men of substantial means, a practice common in many ancient civilizations. Eventually, once a year, there was a custom of auctioning off daughters of marriageable age. In Edwin Long's The Bridal Market of Babylon, based on a scene described in Herodotus' Chronicle, daughters are depicted being auctioned off. People's eyes are focused on the veiled woman on the platform, and the light shining into the room seems to be directed toward the daughters on the platform. However, the main subject of this work is the girl in the center, who sits in front of the platform and gazes at the audience. Despite the stark implications of a bride auction, marriages were not forced. Consent was a prerequisite for consummation. In some cases, daughters preferred the auction, considering it preferable to an arranged marriage to a stranger chosen by their father. If they didn't like the offer, they could refuse. They could also divorce if they had a valid reason or mutual consent. If either the husband or wife was at fault, they could unilaterally annul the marriage and demand alimony from the guilty spouse. However, because of easy marriages, affairs also occurred frequently. Historical records indicate that some married women engaged in affairs, with scholars suggesting two main reasons within the context of Mesopotamian society. The first is the influence of mythology, as we've discussed earlier, which was deeply intertwined with the life and perspectives of the Mesopotamians. The image of a goddess who was very proactive in love and sex was the object of women's admiration. The second reason is institutional. Since the purpose of marriage was childbearing, married men could legally have concubines if their regular wives were unable or unhealthy to bear children. Moreover, instances of men committing adultery weren't officially documented, although rampant infidelity often prompted women to pursue divorce. The ubiquity of extramarital affairs sometimes led them to reluctantly tolerate these situations. Conversely, women caught in adultery faced harsh penalties, sometimes even death. Though actual executions were rare, the severity of these punishments often forced women to flee to new locales. In the end, the most important thing for a country was childbirth, the procreation of offspring for the survival of the nation. The world's industrialized nations are equally troubled by declining birth rates. Although we do not live in an age where people marry and have children for the sake of national survival, we inevitably worry about the future. Of course, this is a more fundamental problem than whether or not to have children. This was about the culture of life in Mesopotamia, the oldest human civilization. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insightful content. Take care and see you in the next video. Goodbye.